So I have these three boxes here, but these boxes, the bottom of this box is here and the edge is here. These boxes are all the same size, they're just further away, and you see how much smaller they're getting. Now this box is, remember that each one of these distances, whether I'm going left to right, going up, or going back along one of these orthogonal lines, each one of these distances is 2 feet. So this, the front edge of this box is 2 feet from the picture plane, and this next one is going to be 6 feet, and this next one is going to be 12 feet. And you see how much smaller. Now if I measure the size on the page, say of the total height of the front plane, which is roughly that distance, it is just about half the height. It's a little bit bigger than half the height of this one. So it's getting much smaller as it goes back in space. Now one thing I do want you to be able to do, I'm going to show you right here in this 5x5 section here, is how to draw an ellipse. The one thing that a perspective setup like this will help you learn how to draw is to draw the correct curve for an ellipse. I'm going to show you ellipse construction, and there is a special relationship. It's actually, you want to divide the square to use this process. You really want to divide it into 10 units. But what we can do is, because this is 5, we can split these in half. We can divide. But I'm going to show you. I won't show you that process here, but I'll show you just the basic setup of this. So I'm going to outline this 5x5 square that I'm working on so it stands out. Okay, I changed my mind. I actually want to go over to here, and partly it's because the vanishing point is directly above here. I want to center this below the vanishing point. Okay, so this is a 5x5, 5 unit by 5 unit square. It's a rectangle, but it's also a square, because I mean, it looks like a trapezoid. Two-dimensionally, it's a trapezoid, but if we think about the illusion of it going back into depth, it's a square. When we draw a circle in perspective, it creates an ellipse. And the technique that I learned for doing this is to cross the diagonal from the far to the opposite corners. I actually already have the diagonal drawn there. So I'm going to put this other diagonal in here. I'll emphasize that other one a little bit. Okay, now once you have the diagonals crossed, you have the center of the square. I would call it the perspective center. The distance from here to here, if we were to measure it, is going to be a little bit greater than the distance from here to here, right? This, if we look at this kind of butterfly, sideways butterfly shape that's here, these two triangles that are pointing on each other, this one's bigger, that one's smaller. The height from here to here is going to be greater than the height from there, right? Because each square gets a little bit smaller as it goes back. So the perspective center is a little bit towards the back of your foreshortened square than the front. Now the next thing you do if you're drawing this is to then draw a line through this center point up. It's a line running to the vanishing point. I'm not going to extend it all the way, but I could. You want that line to cross, to hit the front edge and the back edge, and then you need to draw a horizontal line across. I'm going to eye out. I'm going to eye this out, and we'll see if I'm right. I'll leave it. If I'm wrong, I'll have to adjust it. I think that looks pretty good. Now when I put that cross in there, you can see, I think, that this is a little bit bigger, that's a little bit smaller there. Okay, so the circle is going to hit the square, it's going to be a tangent right here. So the circle is, for a moment, is going to run at that angle. Right in the middle, it's going to run this way. Right in the front, it's going to run this way. I'm drawing these lines of just a little bit off, but technically they should be drawn right on. And then right here, it would go right like that. So when you're drawing, when you're getting the, I've done this a few times, I've done this a lot. So I don't try to draw the whole thing at once, I just try to draw a section of it. And the other thing that people say is that when your curve crosses this section of the diagonal, it should be about 2/3 of the way out or about 1/3 of the way in. And what I do is I start to extend the curve from here. It's coming forward before it, just a little bit before it turns in. And I want to feel it go over so it can make its tangent point there. I don't try to put it in perfectly right away. I'm trying to feel it out. Again, I'm curving back from here. The circle is going to hit the edge of the square right where the line hits. I hope you can see that right there. And then it's going to curve over, and it's only going to hit right there. So it's starting to pull off. It's going to curve. It curves up more through here than it does over there. I may have the back of it flattened out a little bit, which I may have to correct. Okay, this really isn't the most graceful right now. But that process is the process. Yeah, this is totally flattened, and this is totally flattened here. But these crossing points are really important. So I might erase this and redraw. Okay, it's still a work in progress. I'm starting to like this curve here. But what this helps me do, the more I practice this, if I'm drawing from the still life, if I see something that's cylindrical shaped, I am going to understand how that curve is going to change. And so I want to show you one other aspect of this. I'm going to raise this up. I'm not sure how high yet. I might raise it. I don't want it to line up right with this, so I might raise it one other unit higher than this. And remember, if I want to put, this is 2 units high. I base the height of this off the height of this, and I base the height of this because I went across the wall when I put the base in, and I went up where this line of sight at the base of that hit the wall. I went up 2 units. Now 2 units is there, but 2 units is there where it hits this line. So at that alignment is where I got that. So I want to push this up 3 units. So I'm going to come across until I hit the wall, which is here. And then I'm going to go up 3 units. 1, 2, 3. Here's my 3. So 3 unit height, if I'm going further back in space, is going to be there. There. So if I bring the square up, I'm going to have to bring it, the front edge of it is going to be up to there. So I'm going to make it 3 units high. If I wanted to make it 5 units high, I would have to bring it all the way up to here, and the front edge would be that big. Okay, you can see I have the side plane of this drawn here. I have the front plane. This is 3 units high. It's connecting to this 3 unit height over here. And how far back in space am I here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm 6 units back, hitting that, and I'm 3 units up. And then when I get these corners, right, these lines are just vertical lines. When I get these corners, I just angle back to them. Now when I angle back, I don't know how far back I'm going to go. When I extend this line up and it hits my diagonal, then that's the back edge of my box. Okay, I now have I've basically elevated this 5x5 plane that was here up. This is the 5x5 plane elevated. Now the height, the literal height on the page, if we measure, this is much, much bigger than that. You see that? This distance here is about half that height. So when I draw, I'm going to draw an ellipse on here. When I draw the ellipse on here, it's going to be much more complex. My curve might not be perfect, right? I still have some work to do on this curve. But you're going to see how the ellipse changes in space. Okay, quiz. How do you draw an ellipse in a square? Doesn't look, I mean, this looks like a lot like a rectangle, but it's a foreshortened square. You cross the diagonals. Where the cross diagonals meet is the center of the perspective center of that square. It should be directly above this, hopefully. It is, or pretty close. It's not right on, but it's pretty close, and there's some perspective errors, but it's pretty close. I mean, we're gonna have to live with it. Then we've got the center. We draw a line from here back to the vanishing point. Actually, we extend it forward and we extend it back until it hits the edges. Our ellipse is going to hit the front of the square here, the back of the square here. Now we're going to draw a horizontal line through there. Okay, so the ellipse is going to be a tangent. It's going to run at this slope right there. If you like geometry, it's going to run at this slope right here, this here, and this here. It's got to fit in there. Actually, this is what has been helpful to me is I start drawing just a part of the curve here where it's tangent there, and I make it reach over to the next point. I start drawing it here. Hope I'm not blocking the view, and I make it's barely reaching over because it's so foreshortened. I do the same and I do the same. I'm not going to say that this is the best drawn ellipse, but it sets up, again, it shows you how to set this up. It's a little bit flat in the front and the back. Okay, this ellipse could still use a little bit of work on the curvature. It's a little bit flattened in the front and the back, so a little bit like this one. But hopefully you're getting the idea, and you can see the difference. It's pretty clear. You can see the difference of the height from here to here to here to here. Now, if we wanted to make this a cylinder now this was a square, and this is a square. We just connect these points. Now, the funny thing is, because the curve comes a little bit forward, you don't actually see the center side. You see a little bit in front of the center side here. It's just a little bit in front of that point. We have a roll of toilet paper, and its basic volume is a cylinder. And so I could turn it, well, it's a little bit short, isn't it? But we could turn this into a roll of toilet paper. But if we could see through, if we look at the curves, I hope I'm holding this correctly, where you can see some of the top plane here. This curve is going to be flatter, and the distance back from here to here is going to be smaller than this curve. Is going to curve a little bit more, and if we could see the back edge, that space would be open. So if you imagine seeing through the form, even if I tilt this way, this curve is still going to be a little bit flatter than this curve here. This is what you can learn by learning to draw things, basic volumes, in perspective.